is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm excited to be here. I don't know why. Well, maybe it's because like Michelle's here. It's nice to see you again, Michelle. How are you?
You too, Kevin. I miss you every 5 minutes. And like we were just talking about before, I finally got to pick up my grandma's ashes after years of waiting for them. And there's this spark that happened inside of me. It wasn't sad for me. It was very uplifting. And our guest today knows all about uplifting people. So it is an honor. I would love to welcome Richard Jack III. He has 3 websites, so take notes, people. rj3consultant.com, as well as Ladies and Gentlemen. So they're separate, ladiesbychoice.org and gentlemenbychoice.org. Welcome, Richard. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
It is exciting to talk to somebody with your chops, if you will, because you've done so much, and you are dedicated to helping people live their best lives. You're an NLP practitioner, you are a certified coach, and you have a consulting business that you help people understand. Oh, yes, you can too. You can if you choose to. And so welcome to the show. We're so happy you're here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation all week.
I'm glad. So have we. And Michelle, I got to tell you, has had quite the week. But we won't go into the details on that. But she's here now. And so I got to tell you, Coach Jack, how did you start doing this? How did this all evolve for you?
Which part?
Oh, I don't know. Other than the fact that you were born and stuff,
Yes.
because you have a purpose, you have a mission, you have a genuine idea of how you want to give back to humanity. At least that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah. So my journey is real simple. I'm humble. I came from the East Coast, New Jersey boy, raised in a very close-knit family where structure and discipline was the key. And at the same time, we were taught service at a very young age. We were taught to serve each other first and the community second, and most of all, serve God and do all things unto him. So my journey into life has always been about servicing, helping people. I served the military for 20 years as an air traffic controller. I've been in some challenging situations in the military, both here and abroad. So I've had quite a few experiences in my life that really narrowed it down to just serving humanity, serving one another, and taking care of people. And I think that's the key to life.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
And being an air traffic controller, you are the king of multitasking, I would imagine. Keeping in line all of the planes and where they are and their altitudes and that they don't run into each other and all that kind of stuff. That is a very stressful, hard job, isn't it?
It can be that. I think when you understand the challenge or task at hand, most controllers will tell you that it just comes naturally to them. I was fortunate to spend the majority of my career at a base that was very busy. I was at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, which is the home of the fighter pilot in the Air Force. And I had an opportunity to work with every aircraft in inventory. Well, I won't say most aircraft in inventory. And it's nothing like watching a radar scope or working in the control tower and seeing these jets take off and fully weaponized, ready for war. And it just gives you a feeling of appreciation that you get a chance to defend this country and to defend, your homeland. And so I've always been excited about the opportunity and the job and what it's done for me and how it's helped me develop as a person.
Well, and I have to tell you, my son is in the Air Force. He is an electrical engineer on a particular aircraft, but I'm not allowed to know what aircraft that is.
Mhm.
And he served in Japan, where he could go to 7-Eleven to get the best sushi on the planet.
100%.
So good.
He served in London, where it was expensive and they drove on the wrong side of the road. And now he's going to be deployed in the Great White North of North Dakota. Have you ever been there? And can you give him some hope?
I can't tell him about North Dakota, but I was in one of the colder bases, which was KI Sawyer Air Force Base in the Upper Peninsula. And you talking about cold weather, my man? That is some cold weather up there.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he's going to be working at the base that has B-1 bombers that cover the northern tier, I do believe.
Yes, sir. Familiar.
And my cousin was there for a number of years. He liked it, but he's kind of weird. So I don't know. So I'm really kind of hopeful that he'll survive this little excursion to the Great White North and stuff. So, but let's talk more about you. And so you were in the military for 20 years, and you became a coach and an NLP practitioner, and went down that road. Was that part of your journey, or did that kind of sneak up on you?
Interesting story. When I retired in 2007, I was sitting in my house. I had my family here for my retirement ceremony, my cousins and friends, and I was 30 years old, and I sat on the couch and we were talking, having a conversation. And I said, today is the end of a 20-year career, and I have no idea who I am and what I'm going to do next. And I was hesitant because I didn't have any direction. And that led me to trying to figure it out at 38 years old. Now, I had 20 years to prepare for this, but it hit me at 38 that I had no direction, which is what I went into the Air Force with, which no direction. So I chose the Air Force because I graduated from high school. I'm like, I got to do something. So I joined the military, and then fast forward 20 years later, I'm in the same boat I was in when I graduated high school. And as I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the opportunities that were available to me, I didn't want to do air traffic control anymore. So I started looking for opportunities. And at the time, I had just finished up my master's degree in business. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what can I do? I'm not familiar with the environment because I've been 20 years in a institution that was the United States Air Force. So I was okay with that. And I knew I had the skills to survive. I took a job as another controller in a contract tower, which is Creech Air Force Base. And I did that job as a contract controller for about 6 months to maybe 2.5 years. During that time period, I said, well, I'll go back to school and get another degree. So I went back and got a master's in counseling degree. And the master's in counseling led me into school counseling. So I became a school counselor after I graduated. I left air traffic control. I became a school counselor. And I started working with young men and women on just the basic structure. When I walked into the school environment, I was like, man, this is chaos for me because it wasn't the structure that I was used to. But it was okay for them. And one of the things that happened when I was working as a school counselor was I kept seeing young people get in trouble. And it wasn't really trouble to me. It was more like kid behavior, but the adults responded to them in a negative way. And I was like, man, this is really interesting to me because I've never been faced with this. I'm new to the career field. I'm learning the ropes. But what I knew is that as a young man, my grandfather set the standard for me. And so I began to adopt his mentality while working in a school environment, carrying myself a certain way, having the military structure behind me. And next thing you know, a friend of mine who at the time was a dean, he and I were having conversations about how do we create an environment for young people to thrive and not struggle. Next thing you know, I'm putting together a nonprofit to kind of help the students in the school adopt in a healthy way to a school environment that in certain situations, in my opinion, is not set up for them. So now I'm in this particular situation and I'm looking around and I'm working with these youth and I'm having these conversations and I'm like, well, a gentleman came to me and said, hey, you guys got a good thing going because the students are behaving and responding to you in a positive way. So we went from a program to developing a nonprofit. In the meantime, I had already had my NLP introduction. And so as I was a school counselor, I became an NLP practitioner. Now I've done 3 years in Las Vegas in a school, and I'm doing this at a high level for me. We're having success with the youth. And next thing you know, I get the idea, hey, why don't you go to another state and do it? And I wind up going to Maui, Hawaii, and we put the program up in Maui, Hawaii. So now within 2 years, I have a program in Las Vegas. I'm sorry, within 4 years, I have a program in Maui, Hawaii, a program in Vegas, and all of a sudden I get a phone call from a friend who was in Tacoma, Washington, and he said, hey, we love your program. Can we bring it to Hawaii? I mean, to Tacoma, Washington. So now I'm still a school counselor. I'm building a nonprofit. And not only am I building it in one state, I'm building it in 3 states. And that happened in a matter of I'll say 16 months. So if you think about the timetables that this happened, the transition from school counselor to establish a nonprofit in 4 states to leaving the job and becoming a full-time CEO of a nonprofit, it happened like that. And it was all because we kept saying we want to serve the community, we want to serve our youth. And oh, by the way, in that same time period, we took on Ladies by Choice, which was the women's group.
It's amazing.
That is an amazing thing. Rochelle, it hasn't been that long since you were in high school, and you've got friends, cousins, and that kind of stuff. They never get into any trouble, and there's never any issues, right?
Yeah, it was just peaceful, butterflies, happiness all the time. And I love how you said it was just kids being kids because we were curious. We're there to learn. Well, we're there to learn everything. We're there to learn to test boundaries. We're there to learn about ours. We're there to figure out what we're going to do in our life. We're there to learn how people communicate and react. And a lot of times I was that kid in school that if the teacher was unhappy, I'd be the kid to be like, why are you doing this job? why are you here? Because you're making our experience harder because you're not really teaching us anything. But that was wrong. They also had their purpose. Everything that happened throughout school was just this one big learning curiosity, being a child. And they put a lot of rules and regulations around that. And you're right. And unfortunately, it wasn't handled with understanding and curiosity back. And just a conversation. It was usually discipline. And when you tell a child they can't do something, what are they going to do? Exactly that. So it was a rough ride, especially in high school, because you're going through all these different things. But if I had a counselor like you, it might have changed a lot of things because I'd had just somebody to talk to that was an adult.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And so I have to ask, because I live in Seattle, and Tacoma is 30 miles to the south. And so you had a program set up in Vegas. By the way, Red 32, if anybody's in Vegas. And there's a story behind that, which we might not tell.
Traumatize me.
And you were in Hawaii, and then did you ever go to Tacoma?
I did. We did the program in Maui, Hawaii, Tacoma, Washington, Las Vegas, Nevada, and we were also in South Central LA at a KIPP school. So at the end of the year, we do a black and white tie gala, and I would fly into all 4 events and make a loop. And a good friend of mine who still lives in Tacoma, really, really good friend, Jamad Canley, he called me one day and he said, hey, listen, we're having some trouble up here with some of the young men. Can we have your program, and what would it take to bring your program to Tacoma? And I said, say less. The curriculum and the structure is what we emailed to you tonight, and we'll work with you to continue to put the program in Tacoma. We had success in the Tacoma school system. The program did very, very well. The challenge with a program like Gentlemen by Choice is that it's not a program. A lot of times, and I have to be selfish and biased. We're a boutique. We transform people's lives in a matter of 16 to 24 hours because we really go in with a precision approach. We really look at leadership, all right, your attitude and behavior towards leadership, image, how you dress for success, how do you carry yourself as a young man or young lady. We got into financial management, and then we got into etiquette training, which is the level of respect you show towards yourself first, an adult second, and can you use everyday common courtesy and civility to connect with your fellow human. And so these pillars were the foundation for what we thought was a very successful program. We made the young men want to wear shirt and ties in elementary school. We made them want to dress up and stand out and be acknowledged for being a gentleman. And so we made those kind of things being cool, which is not what is happening today, right? Mm. And then at the end of the program, we actually added another pillar, which was personal development, which is how I got involved with personal development. I went to an event and I'm like, if I would have known what I know now after attending a seminar and was able to share that with children, how much more impactful would that be for them? And how much more further would they be? And the feedback I got from the gentleman, we just graduated our first cohort this year, or our first graduates from college. And the feedback that I've had has been tremendous. Like, hey, Mr. Jack, I got to tell you the story. I got a young man who just graduated St. John's University. He went with his BA. He's going back to get his master's in business. He said, when I look at the environment that I'm in at St. John's University, I look at young men that come through the door, and I say to myself, that individual could have used a program like Gentlemen by Choice, because we really instilled in them the perspective of what it is to be a young man and a young lady in a positive and healthy way. And it wasn't us giving them scoldings. It was more about teaching them how to self-correct and be aware and understand who they are in the moment so that they can grow and develop. And then we put the ownership back on them to hold themselves to a standard that was established by the program.
That is absolutely huge. And we need to take our quick break. And but when we come back, I want to tell you, I drove a bus in Seattle for 12 years. And what I found in the youth is a lack of hope. And I want to talk to you about that because it sounds like your program is addressing that particularly and doing it very well. We'll be right back. It's just 30 seconds, folks, so just hang out. We'll be right back.
Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. After the longest night, the sun rose again. It painted the sky with colors no one had seen before. That's how life works. Darkness never lasts forever. No matter how long the night feels, your sunrise will come. Hold on. Light always finds its way back. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope live.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald. Rochelle is right there, and we're talking with Richard Jack III. Coach Jack, as he would.
Absolutely, all day, every day.
Absolutely, and Rochelle, I don't know if it's just been my experience, but I sense in the youth of America there's a lack of direction, there's a lack of hope, there's a lack of focus, and there's a lack of self-discipline. Am I wrong in any of that?
Unfortunately, you're not. I think it's gotten worse even since I was a child. They don't have identity, and they try to find it in each other and their craziness and their curiosity. Richard, I'm just saying, here's just throwing it out there. If you want to start your program here in Salt Lake City, I could house you with kids in 24 hours that I would send directly to you.
I got to give you some feedback. The beauty about the work that I've done is that we impact lives.
Yeah.
The challenge with it is that it costs, right? Yeah. And what you're finding is that we'll invest in everything else except our youth. We'll give them sports, we'll give them entertainment, but we won't invest in their future by giving them some basic concepts and standards that you got to pay for. I believe that the schools are not equipped anymore to facilitate what our youth need going forward. I think our youth are getting further and further behind on so many categories, But I don't think it's about the academics as much as it's about self-development or personal development or any of those type of words you want to throw towards it. Because if I can't govern myself, if I can't self-regulate, I'm not going to have hope. I'm not going to have the opportunities that I think I'm entitled to.
Yeah. Well, and I see, especially in the youth now, my own family, I have kids, they're so smart, they're so capable. It's not the academics. They can get good grades, they're capable at learning. It's being in that environment, and they just randomly just will stop going to school, and their head, one of my cousins, she was ahead, she was doing college classes, everything she had going for her, and then her personal self got affected and she lost her job, and now she's not graduating high school, and it's just like within months away from graduating, and you just see like, and then they're like, oh well, I'm a failure because I didn't graduate high school. And you have these perfectly capable and talented kids that are just lost.
Yeah.
And Coach Jack, I want to ask you this, and it specifically is around athletics in high school, and I want to run this by you and tell me what you think. I know we have academic standards that in order to participate with extracurricular activities like a football team or a baseball team, you have to meet certain academic standards. I tend to think that that's wrong, because the kids that we need to impact by a team environment, learning to work together with teamwork and precision, are kids who may not necessarily academically qualify, yet we lock them out because we don't feel like they're academically sound. But it's the chicken and the egg thing. If we put a kid on the football team and give him discipline within that, and to help him and to give him the counseling and that kind of stuff within that, we can save some of these kids. Am I just wrong, or do you agree kind of in some manner or form?
Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong with this particular situation. I think that there's two things can be true. I see both sides. You can put a student on a team and they may not be academically qualified, and give them some support to help them raise the academic level. At the same time, there are institutions that will lower the standard or the grade so the student can participate in the game, which doesn't teach the student how to be accountable for becoming its best self. And I think that's where the identity problem begins to take shape, is that if I go through my life and I'm told I'm a superior athlete, I'm a great athlete, and then I don't make it to the pro level, now I'm confused because I have no idea who I really am. And I think that more and more with social media and things like that, that's where the students or child's identity is getting lost, is I'm supposed to do this, I'm entitled to that, but I haven't put in the work. I haven't put the extra things into it that I need to get there. I haven't prepared as well as I could, but yet I'm rewarded because of the gift that God gave me to be a talented athlete. I think that's a very thin line and creates a lot of problems on so many levels. And where we're starting to see that more and more, in my opinion, is in an NIL deal, right? Name, image, and likeness, where these gentlemen are getting paid millions of dollars to be college athletes, but what about their character out in life? And I think the moral fiber of our country has been, or starting to disintegrate to a level where it's concerning. One of the reasons why I became a coach, and I'm talking about for adults, my program is called Clarity, Execute, Impact. The reason why I became a coach is because one of the things that we have to understand is that in order for you to grow and develop, you have to establish your identity. And my identity was set for me at a young child because my grandfather was the person who modeled the behaviors that I thought were so important to me as a young man. The way he spoke to individuals, cordial, businesslike in his approach, came home and took care and put his money on the table for my grandmother to pay the bills, made sure the family kept some type of direction. Without those bare necessities, those bare bones, I think we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So
I know I said a
really,
lot. I apologize.
no, don't apologize. You said a lot of really important things right there. And so basically, it is a universal approach. And that's what we don't have. We are segmented, and the kids are not getting the benefit. And I haven't been in education for a very long time, but my sense is they don't get the support, the counseling, the guidance, and the leadership that they need in order to become their best selves. And because it's tough out there for kids right now.
Well, it's tough on the parents.
Yeah.
You know, I think that life has become busier. I think social media sped us up. I think we're caught up in algorithms and things of that nature, and we're distracted from what's really important. And I think that one of the things that we try to do in Gentlemen by Choice is take a holistic approach, both with the men and young ladies, to really try to understand what they need. When I'm coaching adults, a lot of times you'll ask somebody what do they want, and they really can't tell you. They can tell you what they don't want, but they never taken time out to really stop and think about what's important to them and what they really want for their lives. And I think the challenge with that is that if you don't know what you want or you don't know who you are, then how do you know where you're going? And I heard a statement one day that says you will never outlive your identity. You'll never rise higher than your identity. So if you don't hold yourself in high esteem and put those expectations of self, how can you rise?
You can't, Rochelle?
Yeah, and it's building a foundation. Even for the adults, sometimes that foundation gets shifted, it gets shaken, it gets broken, and rebuilding it seems nearly impossible. And then, as well as trying to be that for kids and to hold that in yourself and be the example. I'm wondering, do you have any steps or tools or anything specific, like guidelines that you kind of go off of with your coaching that helps people hugely?
Absolutely. I start with the framework of identity. Who do I want to be? Right? I think that's really one of the key things I've learned is that you have to determine who you want to be. Your identity drives your behavior. So for me, I know that when I ran my nonprofit at the highest level, I had to determine what kind of leader does a nonprofit that supports excellence, what does that look like? Yeah. And then I had to lean into that role with the understanding that whatever I do, my actions and behavior have to drive towards that image that I presented for myself. And so I've lived that my whole life without really knowing it. And what I mean by that is at a young age, I'm a twin, identical twin, and I have two sisters that are younger than me. But even as a twin, and I'm 3 minutes older than my brother, my mother would say, "You're the oldest." And that identity was like, oh, so I'm the oldest. And so I get a chance to take on the man of the house perspective, even though we were twins. When I joined the military, they said when you're an airman basic, right? But here's the thing, you're a professional military soldier. So I adopted the philosophy of what does professionalism mean? And then your expectation is that you emulate that. So when I started to build up and look back at my career and what I've done, identity has always been a part of the conversation without me knowing it. So when I coach, I start from the perspective of what is your identity? So I went to a seminar one time and a gentleman said, I want you to define 3 words of who you are. I defined those words. Then he said, what are the 3 words you want to be? And I realized at that moment that I was living in misalignment because I had outgrown my previous identity and I needed to step into a different identity in a different time of my life. I was no longer in the military, so I didn't have to be task oriented. I didn't have to be mission driven as much. But what I could do is be more enjoyable, more relaxed in my approach and look at things. And by me taking that mental shift, I began to adopt new behaviors and new strategies to pull me forward.
It's amazing. I love that. I think we all need coaching, Kevin, but specifically from Richard. We just duplicate him a few more times.
Well, and you know, the thing is, Coach Jack, is that even when we talk about adults, in many cases, they're just grown-up kids. They've never gone through what that metamorphosis that you're talking about to understand who you are, why you're here, what you can do, and that you can be great and you can do anything you choose to do. So many of us don't believe that's even true when they look in the mirror in the morning.
I totally agree with that. And I think we're not aware that we have a choice. I debate the issue all the time. If you look at the situation, one of the ways that I got the students to buy into the idea that you're a gentleman by choice. So the organization is called Gentlemen by Choice. So what I was embedding in them in their thought process is, I get to choose to be a gentleman every day under all circumstances. It is a choice. And once we embrace the idea that we do have choices, good things happen. And sometimes we've given this perspective that the circumstances determines our outcome. But I would submit to you that I challenge that, because once you change your mind, once you allow yourself to see yourself differently and you buy into that, you get a chance to choose every day how you show up, whether it's for work, whether it's for your family, whether it's for your community, whether it's for your church. You get a chance to choose that. And I just think that helping people understand that they do have a choice is one of the main missions I've adopted in my life and in my calling.
And by the way, we're talking with Richard Jack III. He has a couple of websites, Rochelle, and we got to go to our halftime break because it's football season, so it's halftime.
Yes. If you're an adult and you yourself say, hey, I could use some time with Coach Jack, rj3consultant.com is where you go. And then whether you're younger or whether you have younger ones around you, Ladies by Choice or Gentlemen by choice.org. Go check them out. It's sincerely just amazing what you've created. And when we come back from this halftime break, I really would love you to share a little bit more on how you help somebody find their identity when they don't even know where to start, so that maybe someone who listens to this can do it themselves.
And also I want to explore how when you walked into the Tacoma, which I'm familiar with, into the Tacoma School District, how were you received when you said, by the way, you're going to put on a tie and pull your pants up, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin, and Rochelle is right there, and Richard Jack III. Rochelle, his websites again, please, because I want people to go there because they can find out all sorts of good things to know there.
Yes, if you are an adult and need coaching yourself or are curious, rj3consultant.com. And then for the kiddos, we have Ladies by Choice or gentlemenbychoice.org. So go check those out.
So, Coach Jack, I got to ask you, what was it like when they said, you want me to put on a tie? I don't even know how to tie a tie and pull my pants up, but that's not how we roll, baby. How did you develop the discipline within that group, because if you changed lives that way with what you did or do?
Yeah, so we tricked them. Right? We did. I hate to say it, but we manipulated the situation because we made the shirt and tie and pants a reward.
Right? Well, that makes sense.
Right. So in order for you to get to the shirt and tie and pants, you had to demonstrate leadership, the right attitude, and right behavior. And oh, by the way, it wasn't up to me to decide. It was up to one of your colleagues to decide, one of your classmates that were in the program. And so we knew that if they saw themselves differently, they would behave differently. Once they projected a different image, the teachers responded to them differently. So by us saying you have to earn it, nothing is given, everything is earned in the organization. That was the philosophy that we had going into it. They bought into it, and then when their peers started getting the shirt and tie and pants, and they're like, well, wait a minute, he got it. What is he doing? Oh, I need to do that because he got rewarded. Now it becomes, oh, I need to step my game up. And then that's how we got them to buy into the concept and the philosophy of it. Nothing in the organization was given. Everything, and I mean everything, was earned. We had a funny story, if I can share this with you one day. We were planning for our big annual gala, and we had a gentleman that was in the program. We gave him chances, and we were going to suspend him from the program. And so he got in trouble, and he had to come see me as the counselor. So then the dean and I built this program together, Mr. Antonis Pullen. We built it together. Antonis calls me into his office, and we have 7 to 8 gentlemen lined up in his office. We called it the war room. And the one gentleman that got in trouble, he was standing there. And the goal, the challenge that we had given the young men is that he got in trouble before. If you keep him in the program, you guys are responsible for his behavior. They all agreed to it. Now he gets in trouble. Now they call me in to have a conversation with them. So as I'm sitting there and listening to them give me the conversation, they knew the question was, does the individual that got in trouble, is he allowed to go to the gala? The gala is a big black and white tie event. They dress in tuxedos, the whole nine. So what I did was I said, yeah, he can go to the gala, but they can't. And next thing you know, you had 8 young men crying, and they were upset and they were bothered. And I'm like, they have to go home and tell their parents who bought dresses and the dads bought tuxedos to go, that they can't go because of the decision they made to let an individual who had multiple infractions stay in the group. And what that was a lesson in is that you have to set aside your feelings and your emotions and think logically and critically about the situation. And so to see these young men break down and cry because they were caught up in wanting to go to the gala, they were upset that they made the decision. And at that particular point, it was a very strong learning lesson for them that they'll never forget, that they need to think through the process without emotion and think like gentlemen or men first to hold themselves to a standard. They all got a chance to go, right? Because we're not that cruel. But we wanted to give them an opportunity to use those opportunities to teach them, how do you think through a situation that's not convenient or is a challenge for you. And we met our goal. So everybody went. Their families had a great time. We had 2+ people in the room, and it was a phenomenal experience. But we used every technique and strategy that we could think of to help them shift their thinking to a more positive state of mind.
So it was kind of reverse peer pressure.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
Motivational peer pressure.
Absolutely.
well, and because you stop to think, and I'll pick on the pants thing. That became a thing because somebody thought it was cool, and then everybody else thought it was cool, and so everybody started to do it because, man, that's really cool. But
Right.
It started somewhere, and it started with peer pressure, and so the reverse peer pressure is that's not so cool anymore.
Right.
You need to. Your underwear is called underwear for a reason. It's not supposed to be right there, and stuff. So that's brilliant.
And I have to share this thought too, because then their friends maybe saw them change, and instead of losing their friends, they got to transition together. So they got to hold each other accountable, and whatever I do will affect my people as well. How you said the one of them stood for them all, and that probably taught them so much about unity and connection with each other, and how to move forward and allow somebody to help you. Because a lot of our new generation are like, I got it, I do everything on my own, I'm independent. And it's like if you would just let yourself have better relationships, your whole life would change. So I love that you're doing that work, because it starts with one kid, but the repercussion is massive. I mean, it could be in the whole school, right?
One of the reasons why we did it was to transform the school. So we started with fourth grade. And what was really interesting about what we did was we started with fourth and fifth. And now the third graders started seeing the fourth and fifth graders behave a certain way, and they wanted to be in the program. And we gave them criteria. So everyone wasn't accepted, wink, wink, right? We knew we were going to take them all, but we made it so that they had to earn their way in and demonstrated performance. So now they're looking at their peers, the older peers, saying, I want to be in that program. And in order for me to do that, my grades have to be on par. I have to be disciplined. I can't get in trouble. And all of a sudden, it became the staple of the school because now everyone wants to be a part of the gents and they're looking to get into it. And the parents wanted them in the program because of the impact that we were having. And so even when I was in Hawaii, one of the coldest things I've ever experienced and was that we had a young man who was very shy and timid. And he got into the program, and I chose him specifically because we wanted to build him up. We wanted to give him the confidence. So we did the gala in Hawaii. He walks off, it's over. The father worked at the hotel that we held the gala at. One of our board members or advisors worked as one of the directors of food and beverage at that hotel. So he said to the father, he said, hey, I saw you at the gala. How did you and your son enjoy the gala? And how did your family enjoy the gala? The father broke down in tears. And he said, I can't thank you so much for the program because my son had no friends. He didn't interact with people. He's very shy. And now he has friends and he speaks up and he talks out. So the transformation in the program was more about helping young men find their voice, their vision, their identity amongst their peers so that they can be leaders in the community.
Kevin, could you imagine a bunch of little third graders in tuxedos? It makes me want to sob just thinking about it. I could not imagine. And they probably feel so good, right? Because you're not teaching them to be prideful. You're teaching them to be confident and steady in knowing who they are. And I couldn't imagine doing it with kids that young, like that. It's setting them up before they even know that there wasn't a choice. And I just think that's the most adorable thing.
And here's the beauty of that.
I would love to attend one of those.
Here's the beauty of that. It didn't just work for boys, it worked for girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Same thing, right? We had the same exact message, just packaged a little bit differently. I was a little more gentler, right? But at the same time, I held them to the same standard, the same expectation. I remember lining up and I told the young women, I need you guys, ladies, to put your bags down. Because I never use the word kids. It's either young lady or young man. Young ladies, I need you to put your bags on the ground, your backpacks. And I said to the young men, now you pick the backpacks up and you carry it to classroom. Right? And what I was teaching them is that this is the standard as a young woman that my mother trained me on. So my mother didn't expect to carry the bags. She expected us to come get the bags for her and take them upstairs to the house, whatever the case may be. So those little nuances that I learned as a young man growing up in the community I did, I imparted that onto the youth to help them understand these are the right ways, according to our standards, that you should do it. And then I said to them, hey, when you go home as a gentleman, your mother should never have you take out the trash. You should be able to walk in the door, see the trash, and take it out as a young man to take care of the house. And that talked about responsibility, the whole nine. So we used, I'm giving away my trade secrets. We use forms of manipulation to move the needle.
No, that all you did was instill discipline and create a sense of community, because a lot of the kids don't have a sense of community, a sense of belonging. That this is how everybody else is acting. When I became a Cub Master, there were 3 returning kids, and because it wasn't cool to be a Cub Scout in this elementary school, and so we got more kids, and then they started wearing their uniforms to school on Friday, and it became cooler. So more kids
Mhm.
joined. And then it became a really cool thing, and then the parents got involved. And I'm sure the same thing is happening in the group that you're putting together, that you've put together. Is it affects the kids, it affects the parents, it affects the siblings, it affects grandma and grandpa, everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
by the way, I didn't know that they made a tux that could fit a 6-year-old.
Yeah. And here's the beauty of it. I coach youth or adults the same way I coach youth, right? My demeanor and my approach is the same. I'm consistent, I'm direct. I set the expectations high and I expect them to raise to that level. And a lot of times it's worked, even with adults. I challenge them a little bit differently. I think in the adult world, and I'll go back to what Kevin said, that most of us are still little kids inside. And most of us are still looking for that direction. You may be a high powered performer, but you may be struggling in an area and you need that person who's going to give you a straightforward, hey, Kevin, guess what? You know what? I hear you, but this is what I'm really saying. This is what your behavior is really telling me about where you're at. And if I'm missing something, I apologize. But now let's talk about what you're going to do to correct it. What techniques or strategies do we need to look at to help you adjust to get to where you're trying to go? Because Rochelle, you asked the question. You said, what are some techniques and strategies that I use to help people get to their identity with adults, correct?
Correct.
So the key with that is to identify where they're at, to identify where they want to be, and then help them close the gap by asking key concepts and questions that they've never been asked before. In other words, you can't tell me you want a job and you're sleeping in until 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning. So
Yeah.
what behaviors do you have to put down and what behaviors do you have to adopt? Right? What's your
Right.
attitude that you have to put down? So that's kind of how we start to cross that bridge when it comes to adult. And I hold the adults to the same level of accountability, because at the end of the day, we all want someone to hold us accountable. And when we don't have that accountability partner, I think that's also a challenge in many ways for many adults.
Yeah,
I
agree.
couldn't agree more. And Coach Jack, your program needs to become a national program,
Mhm.
and it needs to be in every school in America, because that's how we are going to change the behavior of what's happening now and change it for the good, I believe. So has anybody ever called you Johnny Appleseed?
No.
Well,
They've called me many things, but not that.
Well, listen to this.
Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A tiny seed was buried in the dirt, covered in darkness, forgotten by the world. But within that darkness, it grew roots, then sprouted into something beautiful. The seasons of struggle you face are not endings, they're beginnings. Trust that growth is happening, even when you cannot see it. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope live.
And welcome back. My name is Kevin McDonald. Rochelle's here, and Johnny Appleseed is joining us. No, wait, that's not right. But you understand what I'm talking about there,
Yes, sir.
in that you are creating the seed for positive change that is available to everybody. Did I say everybody, Rochelle? I meant everybody that is willing to look at the program and look at what you're doing, and to then bring it into their own world, because we need a different way of being. Do you agree, Rochelle?
Yeah, 100%. And as I was watching that, I was thinking that one thing you said was they don't have to do anything. If you tell a child what they have to do, it is a sense of do and don't do this and be this and not that and all this and that. But when you teach them that they get to take care of themselves, they get to take care of their family and their friends, and it makes them feel good to be that person. Even as adults, I don't think we do that enough. And I'm so glad that you're working with the children from 3rd grade and then adults all the way up, because it is kind of the same process and it is the same thinking. And maybe we just lose a sense of curiosity. And like we were talking about last time, you don't know what you don't know. And when you do know, you realize that you get to change and you have that choice, but you get to. And to watch those kids, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that is probably one of the most amazing things that you get to experience every single day, because it's almost like you bring out who they are so they get to meet themselves, and you didn't really do anything. You allowed them to do it themselves, right?
Yeah, the biggest joy I get in this process is the response that I get from the moms and the dads, and more importantly, from the single moms.
Oh yeah.
In many ways, you know, and I came from a product of that environment where mom's working 2 jobs, she's got kids in the house, and she's got to maintain the household. That's where I came from, and so I have an appreciation for that journey. And when you get a chance to have an impact and the child transforms and becomes a better child in the home, that makes moms and dads' jobs a lot easier. And I was in the grocery store just recently, and a mother recognized me, and I had her son about 5 years ago, and she goes, "Coach Jack." I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" She's like, "Oh, I never forgot you, my son, blah, 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 blah." And she just went on and she couldn't stop talking about what the program did for her son. Now, he may not be where she wants him to be right now, but he made changes. And I think anytime that you can add value to a person's life to create the change, I think you've done your service. And that's all I can ever do for anybody, right? I'm my mother's firstborn. The expectation I put on myself is to never make her worry about me and never make her concerned about me. And I fulfilled that. And so for me, I try to look at every child and give them that same sense of thought process that as a child, you have a responsibility to never make your parent worry, because that's the worst thing a parent wants to do is worry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the hope is, can you rise beyond your circumstances and become the best version of you that you haven't even begun to understand who you really are yet?
Well, even as an adult, I can imagine you with your coaching business, the worry that you feel within is got to be so relieving for people.
I love seeing the transformation. I love seeing a person walk in concerned and walk out feeling relief and hope and value, especially when you're talking about executives dealing with imposter syndrome, dealing with burnout, dealing with these challenges. I'm disconnected. I'm present, but I'm not really present because I've done this for so long. See, the conditioning of life places in a mindset that we don't never stop to really think about, is this really what I want to do? I mean, think about the journey, and Kevin, and you and I kind of touched on this, is that I joined the military for 20 years. At no particular point in time during my 20-year career did I ever stop and say, what do I want the next part of my life to look like? And when that 20-year marker hit, I had to self-evaluate, and now I'm lost again because I never thought beyond the 20 years, and no one's ever stopped me and said, hey, you're going to get out soon. You focused on the job, but did you focus on you? And one of my mentors, Jim Rohn, said that it's better to focus on you than it is on your job, because you gain so much insight and personal development and growth when you focus on yourself. And I'm paraphrasing what he said, but the message was clear. You're spending so much time on your job that you're now focusing on you, and then you lose sight of who you are because you're making somebody else's situation better. You're making them more money, but what are you doing for you? And so as a coach, I'm always trying to bring people back to living in alignment, living for self, so that you can be a better version of yourself, if that makes sense.
100%.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say this because you mentioned early on that your grandfather was a guiding force in your life and in your whole family. And I want to say this to all the dads and grandpas that are out there, that you can make a change that can be a cataclysmic change in your family if you follow some guidelines like your grandfather gave you, which now you're able to change lives. And I'm sure he's passed on now, but he created a wonderful legacy, and he looking down at you every day
Yeah, man.
and saying, that's my grandboy, that's the guy, and he's changing the world.
Yeah. And Kevin, can I just share this with you? He never told us how to behave.
No.
He never did it. He never said, this is what you do. What he did, which was so powerful, was by his approach, he set the standard through his behavior. And good, bad, I mean, we all have good and bad, right? But I took away from him, he was cordial, polite, considerate, and he was a gentleman, and he carried himself with dignity and pride and his standard. And as a child, watching him, he became my identity. Like, that's what I want to emulate. And I didn't hit the mark. I'll never live up to my grandfather's, what I believed. He was like, he was my Superman. He was my superhero as a man. But I tried to emulate it the best I could. And I know he's proud of me because I've heard the feedback from my family that your grandfather will be proud of you, and I can feel his spirit that he's still with me. And then when I get to those points, I can hear him touch me on my back and saying, come on now, next chapter, let's move it. And it's a nudge that I appreciate because I got the lessons I needed to get as a man from him. And I love my family because it was a village that raised me. My mom worked her butt off. My grandmother was my rock. All my mothers and my grandmother's siblings and the support cast, they were there to be a guiding force. So I never needed for anything, and I had everything, but I didn't have anything, right? We grew up poor and humble, but that village and the people around me, they didn't let me get in trouble. They didn't allow me. I remember one day I came down the street dribbling a basketball, and I had my hat on backwards. And my grandfather looked at me and said, come here. I said, I called him Pop. I said, Pop, what's up, man? He said, are you going backwards in life? So I'm stunned. I'm like, backwards? He goes, yeah, you got your hat on backwards. Are you going backwards in life? I said, no. He said, well, do me a favor. Turn your hat around. That was it. And guess what? I don't wear my hat backwards anymore, ever.
But that is something that he imprinted in you, and you have carried
100%.
it with you the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's a metaphor for a bunch of different things.
Yeah. That was my man. And my uncles were, my mother's brothers were the same way. If I did something that looked remotely out of pocket, they would not yell or scream. They didn't do all that. They just called you to the side and say, hey, is this how you're supposed to behave? No. Knock it off. And that was it. I'm like, it's just that simple. That was it.
Oh, I got to tell you, you are a remarkable man. And it has been my pleasure to have you, and my honor to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Because you are contributing to the betterment of man and womankind, and the kids that you're working with today are going to grow up and be better for it, and so therefore are their kids. And
thank you.
You're changing the environment that all of these that they're living in, and I'm glad to see that you're very proud of that. And Brachelle, it's pretty cool talking to him, isn't it?
Yes, it's very emotional because, man, it's just sometimes we struggle in life. And Richard, I'm saying, if you ever want to branch out a little more, Salt Lake City, screaming your name.
Listen, if you get me a donor, and to Kevin's point when he said that, the goal was to make it a national program. The problem it's always going to come down, in my opinion, and I wonder, I have to put this out there, it's always going to come down to funding. But what are we funding? Are we funding the right things? Or are we funding the things that maybe not add the value that a program like Ladies and Gentlemen by Choice can bring to the table? And you know, that's kind of the trade-off, right? Because you need to develop people. We need adults that have that vision and that skill to elevate. And without that, I believe our youth are in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I'll find them and I'll figure it out and I'll call you. But what Kevin said seriously is just on point. I could imagine just a day walking in your shoes, and you've taught me a lot as well, you know, because I have teenagers around me all the time. I'm like, what the fuck? And, you know, it just, I still have this little kid self in me too, that I have to remind myself how they're hearing it. But I don't think there's anything more powerful than the work that you're doing on this earth. And I'm so thankful that you had your grandfather to be who he was, because you emulate him and honor the fact of his life every single day that you're here. So seriously, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Rochelle, take us out.
Okay, well, everybody, we've come to the end of our time, sadly. Richard, will you come back, please?
Yeah, but I have a request.
Okay.
The next time I come back, I have to bring my brother with me.
Yes.
I'm sorry it took so long for us to respond.
Bring them all.
Yeah.
I would love to do that, even if we branched out and maybe did some more shows with you through the year, have some of the kids on. We can talk with them, see their perspective and all those fun things.
I would love to have the kids on.
Yes,
we love kids.
Yes. And maybe even some parents that would come on here and just say, hey, from what I've learned, these are the things that I think you could take with you in your daily life. Just in an hour conversation can change somebody so impactfully. So everybody, when you hear this, you don't have a choice. Well, you do have a choice. That's kind of the whole point of what is, but I'm not giving you a choice to have this choice. Go to rj3consultant.com or ladies by choice or gentlemenbychoice.org. Get in tune and in touch with Richard and his work, and live for yourself, live for your kids, and teach them what's possible. So thank you, Richard, for being here and for your time. And Kevin, as always, for making this possible. We love you all.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got.